moment. A new start. Now the UK has left the EU. Time to set our course as we...
The soothing government ad voiceover coincided with the announcement of a whole new raft of requirements on exporters to the EU, individual travellers to the EU, and some more detail on the government's planned immigration policy. A government document today confirmed businesses wanting to employ an EU citizen need to buy a licence and pay a £1,000 charge per worker per year. Graduate students from overseas could be allowed 2 years of post-study work here, and the newly unveiled health and care visas are not available to just about anyone working in social care, as the government tries to cut low-paid immigration to the UK.
How do you do?
The Prime Minister visiting an ambulance station in London said that wasn't a problem because many overseas care workers already here could apply to stay.
There are more EU nationals, I'm proud to say, living in and working in this country than we even thought. I mean, I think the numbers, it was 3 million, then 3.2, then 3.4, and we're seeing huge numbers of people registering for their right to remain, and that's great. So we have a big stock of workers who are helping out in this country who have come from abroad.
There's about 112,000 vacancies at the moment in social care, but we also know that there's a large number of staff, because of the experience of the pandemic, who are considering whether they stay working in the sector for reasons I'm sure we'd understand. So what we fear is that come January, a really important recruitment route closes, and actually the domestic route doesn't open to the same extent because of the challenges that there are around competing in terms of salary and terms and conditions with many other sectors of the economy.
The government's been in discussions about buying land for a lorry park here in Ashford. It revealed that 10 to 12 other sites were being looked at for inland customs and border controls. The government published 200 pages of guidance for exporters. Most pages apply even if the government strikes a free trade deal, because the UK has left the customs union.
From January 2021, in order to fulfil the import process, traders will need to have a GB Economic Operator Registration and Identification, or EORI number, before moving their goods. They'll need also to have the commodity code of their goods, which will be needed to make a customs declaration and, of course, to calculate duties on an import.
With so many of our small and UK-wide businesses struggling to survive following the COVID crisis, the idea of adding additional friction and cost to the trading relationship with their biggest market is really and deeply problematic and worrying.
Last week, the Chancellor of the Exchequer stood at that dispatch box and said that he would do all he can to support British business. Today, the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster stands at that same dispatch box and is wrapping those businesses in red tape and sending them to a supersized lorry park in Dover.
Actually, the new lorry infrastructure points are being planned inland to reduce possible congestion at the port. The government's promising the best-run border in the world by 2025. But many in haulage are wondering what they're in for in the years before that.
Gary Gibbon reporting there. So to the front line with more on the industry's reaction to the new border plans being put in place. Over to our political correspondent Liz Bates, who's in Dover. Liz.
Yes, so here in Dover, 10,000 trucks pass through here every day. At the moment, between the European Union and the UK, that movement is, of course, frictionless. But when the Brexit transition period ends at the beginning of next year, and if no deal is reached, then that will all change. At that point, businesses expect to face a mountain of paperwork in the form of new customs checks. There has been long-standing concern that that could cause chaos on the UK's borders, and that in places like this we could see scenes of massive gridlock as trucks back up for miles on UK motorways. Now, today the government released its plan to avoid that chaos, and part of that was border inspection posts. We think there'll be up to 12 of those across the country. There'll be one up the road from here in Ashford in Kent. These are places where drivers will go to get their paperwork checked before they arrive at ports. Now, another area that the government is investing in is customs agents. Now, these will be people that will help businesses through these changes. At the moment, 80 million has been earmarked to train new customs agents. But when we spoke to the head of the Road Haulage Association earlier, he suggested that that was nowhere near enough.
Getting the systems and processes in place is one part of this, but the people, training the people, communicating to the traders, getting the traders up to speed, with what they need to do, is an enormous challenge. That's a massive comms program. But recruiting these people, training them, and getting them ready for the end of the year, I just think is an enormous task, an enormous challenge that at this stage feels like it's going to be impossible to actually deliver.
And one more interesting detail to come out today. We've heard a lot about technological solutions that will be used on borders. Today we heard a bit more about that. There'll be an app, apparently. It will be called Smart Freight. At the moment it's still at the development stage, but I'm sure we'll hear more about that in the future.